She was born into a world full of sounds, lights, and shadows, yet she had never seen any of it. From the very first moments of her life, darkness was her companion. While others saw the colors of the sky and the glow of the sun, she felt the warmth and listened to the birds singing outside the window. Her parents had been scared at first when they learned that she could not see, but over time, they discovered something remarkable about her. She had an ear for music that seemed to go beyond human understanding. As a small child, she would sit for hours with a tiny toy piano in her room, running her small fingers over the keys. She did not need to see the notes written on paper because the music lived in her mind. Each sound created a picture in her imagination, a story that only she could see in her mind's eye. Her parents watched in awe as she played melodies that were complex and beautiful, melodies that one would not expect from a child who had never even touched a real piano. Her room was filled with the soft hum of music. She learned to identify each note by its tone and pitch, the way a bird could recognize the call of another in the wild. She did not see the world as others did, but she had her own way of seeing. The vibrations of sound told her where things were. The rhythm of life around her became her guide. And in that world, music was not just a hobby. It was a bridge to everything she wanted to touch but could not see. As she grew older, it became clear that her talent was rare. Local teachers were astonished when they first heard her play. The way her hands moved, the way the notes flowed, it was as if the piano itself was speaking through her. People in her town began to notice the girl who could make a piano sing in ways that no one else could. She was invited to play at small gatherings, local events, and even school programs. Every time she performed, there was a quiet magic in the room, a feeling that something extraordinary was happening. Yet, despite her growing talent, the world was not always kind. Children in her school would sometimes tease her, not out of malice, but because they did not understand. She learned to ignore them, focusing instead on the music that made her feel alive. At home, her parents encouraged her, reminding her that the world's blindness did not make her any less capable. She knew that she had a gift, and she wanted to use it, no matter what others thought. Her parents saved enough money to buy her a real piano when she was 8 years old. It was not a grand piano, but it was perfect for her. The first time she touched the keys, she felt a connection unlike anything else. She closed her eyes and let her fingers explore, learning each note by feel. She memorized songs quickly, and soon she was able to play entire pieces from memory. Her mother would sit nearby, guiding her with gentle words, and her father would record her practice sessions so she could listen back and notice where she could improve. By the time she was 12, her talent was undeniable. She began to dream of performing on larger stages, of showing the world what she could do. But the thought of entering a professional world, where critics and famous musicians roamed, frightened her. She had always been sheltered in her small town, and now she had to imagine herself in places full of strangers, bright lights, and judgment. Still, the music in her heart was stronger than her fear. She knew she had to try. Her first big opportunity came when a teacher suggested she audition for a music academy known for its rigorous training and world-class instructors. The idea terrified her. She had never been anywhere outside her town alone. The thought of facing musicians who had seen and experienced more than she ever could, and potentially being mocked for her blindness, was almost too much. But her desire to play, to let the music flow, outweighed the fear. With her parents' support, she agreed to audition. The day of the audition arrived. The hall was large, the kind of place that made her heart race. She could hear the echo of her footsteps and the faint sound of other students warming up. She was led to the piano and asked to perform a piece she had practiced for months. As she began to play, the sound filled the room. The judges were silent, listening to each note with intent. Even without seeing their faces, she could sense the attention. When the last note faded, there was a pause. Her heart pounded in her chest. Then, one of the judges, a famous pianist known for being strict and intimidating, leaned forward. He had seen many talented musicians, and many had failed to impress him. He asked her questions, testing her understanding of the music, its history and technique. Each question she answered with confidence. Despite her nerves, She played again, this time a more difficult piece. Her fingers moved across the keys with precision, her body swaying slightly with the rhythm. The music was not just sound. It was her story, her journey, and the challenges she had faced. The judges could not help but be impressed. She had captured something rare: emotion, technique, and soul in every note. After the audition, she waited outside, unsure of the result. She could feel the nervous energy of the other students around her, but she tried to stay calm. Finally, one of the teachers approached and smiled. She had been accepted. The news brought tears to her eyes. For the first time, she felt that her dreams were within reach. She had proven, even to herself, that her blindness was not a barrier. Life at the academy was different. She met other students, some friendly, some competitive. She had to adjust to the fast pace and high expectations. Early mornings were filled with exercises, afternoons with rehearsals, and evenings with practice in her room. There were moments of doubt, moments when she wondered if she truly belonged. But every time she sat at the piano, the music reminded her why she was there. Her blind world was different from others, but she had learned to navigate it. She memorized the positions of the keys, listened carefully to the sound of the notes, and felt the vibrations of the piano. Every day she improved, growing more confident in her abilities. Teachers began to take notice, recognizing the extraordinary talent and determination behind the music. And so, her story at the academy began. A story of challenges, growth, and determination. She knew that there would be obstacles ahead, especially in a world that sometimes did not understand her. But she also knew one thing with certainty. Music was her voice, her way to reach the world, and nothing could take that away from her. The academy was bigger than anything she had ever seen. Each hallway seemed endless, echoing with the sounds of music coming from classrooms, practice rooms, and studios. She could hear footsteps, laughter, and occasional applause from students performing for one another. For someone who had never been outside her small town for long, it was overwhelming. Every sound told a story, and she learned quickly how to read them. The clatter of a dropped book, the tap of a metronome, even the hum of the air conditioner helped her build a mental map of her surroundings. Her first weeks were filled with learning not just music, but also the rules of this new world. The other students were friendly enough, though some stared curiously when they realized she was blind. A few whispered behind her back, unsure how to treat someone who could not see. But she had learned early in life that whispers were not worth her attention. Her focus remained on the piano, the one thing that never judged her and always responded to her touch. One afternoon, the academy announced a special masterclass, led by a pianist whose reputation preceded him. He was famous, known for his brilliant performances and harsh critiques. Many students admired him, but others feared him. She felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. She had practiced for moments like this, but standing before someone so well known could be intimidating, especially for a girl who had always relied on her own strength and the encouragement of her parents. The day of the masterclass arrived, and the room buzzed with anticipation. Students filled the chairs, their instruments ready, while the piano waited in the center of the stage. She could hear the pianist's voice before she saw him, commanding attention even from across the room. He began speaking about technique, expression, and precision. His words were sharp and precise, and his reputation as a demanding teacher became clear with every sentence. When it was her turn, she walked slowly to the piano, guided by a staff member. Her heart raced, but her fingers itched to play. She positioned her hands above the keys, closed her eyes, and let the music flow. The notes filled the room with a clarity that seemed to surprise even her. She had prepared a piece that she knew well, one that showcased both her technique and her emotion. As she played, she could hear whispers among the audience, some admiring, others skeptical. She tried to focus only on the sound, feeling the vibrations and letting them guide her. Halfway through, the famous pianist interrupted. He leaned forward and asked her to stop. His voice was sharp, carrying a hint of disbelief. "Do you really think you can play this correctly without seeing the keys?" he asked, with a tone that was more mocking than curious. The room grew quiet. Her stomach twisted, but she did not back away. She had faced doubt before, and she had learned that confidence in her own ability could silence even the harshest critics. She took a deep breath and replied, her voice steady, "I can." She returned to the piano, this time letting herself feel the music even more intensely. Each note was a statement, each chord a declaration of her determination. Her fingers danced over the keys, moving faster and more confidently than before. The pianist watched, his expression slowly shifting from skepticism to surprise. She could sense the change in the room. The energy shifted as well. Where there had been doubt, there was now curiosity, a quiet respect forming around her performance. As the final notes rang out, the room was silent for a moment. Then, a small clap came from the back, followed by more, until the entire audience was applauding. She had not just played a piece of music. She had told a story of courage, talent, and perseverance. The pianist nodded slightly, a rare acknowledgement of her skill. She felt a sense of triumph, not because she had proven him wrong, but because she had expressed herself fully and fearlessly. After the masterclass, some students came to her curious and impressed. They asked how she learned to play without seeing, how she memorized such complex pieces. She explained her methods simply: listening, feeling, and practicing tirelessly. Some were inspired by her story, realizing that determination and passion could overcome obstacles they had not considered. Others were quietly humbled, seeing in her an example of resilience and dedication. Despite the applause and praise, the challenge did not end there. She knew that not everyone would be as accepting, that her path would continue to be filled with moments where she would need to prove herself. She spent the next days practicing more, preparing for upcoming performances and competitions. Each practice session was a battle of focus and endurance, but she had grown used to the rhythm of challenge and reward. Her parents' voices echoed in her memory, reminding her that every note she played was a step toward her dream. She also began to notice the subtle ways the world responded to her presence. People who initially doubted her ability began to treat her with more respect. Teachers adjusted lessons to ensure she could participate fully. Fellow students who once hesitated to speak to her now sought her out for advice on music. These small victories built her confidence, reinforcing the belief that her talent was valid and deserving of recognition. At night, she would lie in bed and replay the day's music in her mind. Each piece she had played, each lesson she had learned, became part of a larger story of growth. She visualized herself performing in grand halls, reaching audiences far beyond her small town. Though she could not see those places, she could imagine the energy, the sound, and the connection with people who would listen to her music. These thoughts gave her hope, fueling her determination to keep moving forward. Soon, the Academy announced a performance showcase, a chance for students to present their skills to an audience of teachers, parents, and music enthusiasts. She knew this would be another moment of challenge, another opportunity to be judged. But she felt ready. She had faced skepticism, mockery, and doubt before, and each time, she had emerged stronger. The showcase would be no different. She spent weeks preparing, choosing pieces that reflected not just her technical skill, but also her personal journey. She practiced tirelessly, listening to recordings, adjusting her timing, and ensuring that each note carried the emotion she wanted to convey. The music was her voice, and she was determined to let it speak loudly and clearly. The day of the showcase arrived, and the Academy was filled with excitement. Students performed one by one, each displaying their talent. She waited backstage, listening to the music of her peers and feeling the anticipation build. When it was finally her turn, she walked confidently to the piano. The applause and whispers faded as she began to play. She focused entirely on the music, letting her hands move naturally over the keys. Her performance captivated the audience. The pieces she played were challenging, yet she handled each with precision and emotion. She poured her heart into the music, telling the story of her journey, her struggles, and her victories. By the time she finished, the room erupted in applause. Some people were moved to tears, Others whispered in admiration. Even the famous pianist who had once doubted her watched with respect, recognizing the depth of her talent. That night, as she returned to her room, she felt a sense of fulfillment unlike anything before. She had faced ridicule, fear, and doubt, and she had transformed those challenges into music that touched others. Her journey was far from over, but she had learned an important lesson. Talent, determination, and courage could overcome even the harshest obstacles. She closed her eyes and let the quiet of the room fill her with peace, knowing that the next chapter of her life would continue to be shaped by the music in her heart. After the showcase, her reputation at the academy began to grow. Students who had once ignored her now offered smiles and words of encouragement. Teachers began asking her to play for special events, and she could feel herself slowly becoming a part of a larger musical community. Yet, despite the recognition, she knew that there were still challenges ahead. Not every musician would accept her, especially those who believed that sight was essential for true mastery. She had learned to ignore doubt when it came from herself, but criticism from others was something she had to navigate carefully. One morning, the academy announced an upcoming competition, one that would include students from other prestigious music schools. The best pianists from different cities would come to perform, and judges would select the winner based on technique, emotion, and originality. The news spread quickly, and the excitement in the halls was palpable. She felt a mixture of fear and anticipation. This competition would be different. The stakes were higher, and the audience would include people who had never seen her perform before. She knew she had to prepare carefully. She spent hours each day at the piano, choosing pieces that could showcase both her technical skill and her emotional depth. Each practice session was intense, often leaving her hands tired and sore. But the music fueled her determination. She memorized every note, every pause, every expression, until the pieces lived within her mind and body. She even practiced imagining herself in a large hall, with strangers watching, to prepare for the pressure she would face. Her blind world had taught her to rely on sound, touch, and memory, and she used all of these senses to perfect her performance. While practicing, she faced moments of self-doubt. What if she made a mistake in front of such an important audience? What if people laughed or criticized her? But she remembered the masterclass where she had been mocked and yet had proven herself. That memory gave her courage. She reminded herself that the music was not just for others. It was her voice, her story, and she had every right to share it. The day before the competition, the academy held a rehearsal in the main hall. She could feel the grand space around her. The way sound bounced off the walls and filled the room. She closed her eyes and let her hands glide over the keys. Each note echoed, creating a melody that seemed larger than herself. Teachers and fellow students watched quietly, impressed by the depth and clarity of her playing. Even those who had been skeptical before now nodded in respect. She felt a quiet pride, knowing that her hard work was paying off. The morning of the competition, she woke early, feeling a mix of nerves and excitement. She reviewed her pieces in her mind, imagining the sound of each note and the emotion behind it. Her parents had accompanied her, offering encouragement and reminding her that the outcome did not define her worth. The trip to the competition hall was filled with chatter from other students, but she focused on her own preparation, letting the rhythm of her breathing keep her calm. When she arrived at the hall, it was larger than any she had ever seen. The stage was set with multiple pianos, and a large audience was already gathering. She could hear the low hum of conversation, the shuffle of feet, and the faint tuning of instruments. Guided by a staff member, she walked to her piano and positioned herself carefully. The weight of expectation was heavy, but she felt ready. She reminded herself that every note she played was a reflection of her journey, and that gave her strength. The competition began, and one by one, the students performed. She listened carefully to the music of her peers, appreciating their skill while staying focused on her own preparation. When it was finally her turn, she walked to the stage with a calm confidence. The audience quieted, and the judges leaned forward, ready to listen. She took a deep breath, placed her hands on the keys, and let the first notes flow. The music filled the hall, carrying both precision and emotion. Every sound spoke of her hard work, her struggles, and her triumphs. Midway through her performance, she could sense the attention of the audience. The energy in the hall seemed to shift. People leaned forward, listening more closely, captivated by the way she brought each piece to life. Even the judges, known for their strict standards, appeared impressed. Her fingers moved with a confidence and grace that could not be denied. She was not just playing the notes. She was telling a story, one that everyone could feel even if they could not see her journey. As she approached the final notes, her heart pounded, but her hands were steady. She had practiced this moment countless times in her mind, and now she was living it. The last chord echoed through the hall, leaving a silence that felt almost sacred. Then, applause erupted. The audience stood, clapping and cheering, moved by the performance they had witnessed. She felt a rush of emotion, a mix of relief, pride, and joy. She had faced the fear of performing in front of strangers and had succeeded beyond her expectations. After the performance, the judges conferred quietly. When they finally announced the results, her name was called as one of the top performers. She had earned recognition not just for her technical skill, but for the emotion and depth she brought to her music. She felt tears prick her eyes, but they were tears of happiness. She had proven to herself and the world that her blindness was not a limitation. It was simply one part of who she was. In the days that followed, she received invitations to perform at other events and music gatherings. Teachers praised her dedication, and fellow students began to look up to her as an example of perseverance and talent. She continued to practice diligently, knowing that every performance was another opportunity to grow and share her music. The world had begun to see her not just as a blind girl, but as a remarkable pianist whose talent and determination could inspire anyone. She also reflected on the journey that had brought her here. From the first time she touched a piano in her small room, to the hours of practice and memorization, to the moments of doubt and fear, every step had been a part of her story. She had learned that success was not about avoiding challenges, but about facing them with courage and using them to become stronger. Each note she played was a reminder of that lesson. As she lay in bed at night, replaying her performances in her mind, she felt a deep sense of purpose. The music was her voice, and through it, she could communicate feelings and experiences that words alone could not express. She imagined herself performing in even larger halls, reaching more people, and sharing the beauty of her music with the world. Though she could not see, she felt a vision of the future filled with possibilities, guided by the sound of the piano and the strength of her heart. She knew that there would always be challenges ahead. Critics, competitions, and new audiences would test her skills and her confidence. But she also knew that she had already faced doubt and ridicule and had transformed them into achievements. Every obstacle was an opportunity, every moment of fear a chance to grow. Her story was still unfolding, and she was ready to continue writing it, one note at a time. The day she had been preparing for had finally arrived. The Academy announced a special concert where the most talented students would perform in front of a large audience, including music critics, teachers, and visiting musicians from around the country. She felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness, but more than anything, determination. She had worked so hard to reach this point, and she was ready to share her music with everyone who came to hear it. She arrived at the hall early, guided by a staff member who knew her well. The room was massive, the ceilings high, and the stage set with multiple grand pianos. The sound of tuning pianos filled the air, accompanied by the soft murmur of people finding their seats. For a moment, she closed her eyes and let the sounds wash over her. Each vibration gave her a sense of the space, the distance to the stage, and the presence of the audience. She felt calm, as if the hall itself was welcoming her. Backstage, she watched other students warm up, their fingers dancing over keys with skill and confidence. She could hear the anxiety in some of them, the excitement in others. She reminded herself that everyone felt nervous at times, and that her focus on the music would guide her through. She took a few deep breaths and imagined the music in her mind, running through the pieces she had chosen. Every note, Every pause, every emotion was already inside her. She only needed to let it out. The first performers took the stage, and the audience clapped politely for each one. She listened carefully, learning from the way other students expressed emotion and technique. She felt a sense of anticipation building inside her. When it was finally her turn, she walked confidently to the piano, feeling the wooden floor beneath her feet and the slight hum of energy from the audience. She positioned herself, took a deep breath, and placed her hands on the keys. The first notes floated through the hall, delicate and precise. She let the music guide her, her fingers moving with confidence. Each chord carried emotion, telling a story that was uniquely hers. The audience listened in silence, drawn into the world she created with sound. She could feel the connection, a quiet understanding forming between her and the listeners. This was more than performance. It was communication, a bridge between her heart and theirs. As the piece progressed, the tempo increased, and her fingers danced faster across the keys. She felt a surge of energy, a rhythm that seemed to flow through her veins. Every note resonated in the hall, echoing off the walls, creating a tapestry of sound that was both powerful and delicate. She could sense the audience leaning in, captivated by the intensity and beauty of the music. Even those who had doubts about her ability were now completely absorbed. Halfway through, she reached the most challenging section of the piece. The notes were fast, intricate, and required absolute precision. She could hear her heart beating in sync with the rhythm, her body moving naturally with the music. For a brief moment, she felt the presence of the famous pianist who had mocked her in the past. Instead of fear, she felt determination. She wanted to show him, and everyone else, that her talent was real, that her blindness did not define her limits. She played with intensity, every key pressed with purpose. The music told a story of struggle and triumph, of fear transformed into strength. The audience was silent, completely absorbed in the performance. She could sense their emotions, the way they leaned forward, the soft sighs and whispers of awe. Her fingers never faltered, moving with a confidence and grace that came from years of dedication. She was in her element, fully immersed in the sound, letting her music speak louder than words ever could. The final section approached, and she felt a surge of emotion. This was the moment where everything came together. The years of practice, the hours of memorization, the moments of doubt, and the courage to face them all. She poured her heart into the music, letting every note convey the journey she had traveled. The vibrations under her fingers were her guide, the sound filling the hall with a resonance that seemed to touch every person in the room. As she pressed the final chord, there was a brief silence, almost as if the hall itself was holding its breath. Then, the applause erupted, filling the space with claps and cheers. Some people stood, others wiped away tears, and a few whispered words of admiration. She felt a wave of relief and pride wash over her. She had done it. She had faced the challenge, shared her music, and connected with the audience in a way that transcended words. After the performance, the famous pianist who had once mocked her approached. His expression was unreadable at first, but then he nodded slowly, a small smile forming. He offered words of praise, acknowledging her skill and determination. She felt a sense of quiet satisfaction, knowing that she had not just proved herself to him, but to the world. The recognition was secondary to the joy of sharing her music. The true reward was the connection she had made with those who listened. Backstage, fellow students and teachers came to congratulate her. Their words were kind and genuine, filled with admiration for her talent and courage. Some asked how she had learned such complex pieces, how she managed to play with such emotion and precision without seeing the keys. She smiled and explained simply, through listening, feeling, and practicing tirelessly. Her story inspired many, showing that determination and passion could overcome challenges that others might see as impossible. In the days that followed, invitations to perform at other events began to arrive. She was asked to play at community gatherings, music festivals, and even special concerts in larger cities. Each opportunity was a chance to grow, to share her gift, and to inspire others. She continued to practice diligently, always seeking to improve, but now with the confidence that came from proving herself on a larger stage. She also reflected on the journey that had brought her here. From the first time she touched a piano in her small room, to the long hours of practice, to the moments of doubt and fear, every step had shaped her into the musician she had become. She understood that talent alone was not enough. Courage, perseverance, and a willingness to face challenges were just as important. Her music was a reflection of all of this, a testament to the power of determination and heart. At night, she would replay her performances in her mind, feeling the vibrations of each note and the emotions they carried. She imagined herself performing in even larger halls, reaching audiences who had never seen a blind pianist perform. Though she could not see, she envisioned the energy, the sound, and the connection she could create. These thoughts filled her with hope and excitement for the future. She knew that challenges would continue to come, that critics and new audiences would test her skills and confidence. But she also knew that she had already faced doubt and ridicule, and had transformed them into achievements. Every obstacle was an opportunity to grow, every moment of fear a chance to become stronger. Her story was still unfolding, and she was ready to continue writing it, one note at a time. Her music was her voice, and through it, she could reach the world in ways that words alone could not convey. The news of her performance spread quickly throughout the academy and beyond. Students and teachers spoke about the blind girl who had played with such emotion that the entire hall had been captivated. Invitations came from local concerts and music events, each one offering her the chance to perform in front of new audiences. But despite the growing recognition, she remained humble, focused on the music and the connection it allowed her to create with listeners. One day, the Academy announced a special gala featuring renowned musicians from around the world. The highlight of the evening would be a performance by students selected for their exceptional talent. She received an invitation to perform, which was both exciting and intimidating. The audience would include famous pianists, critics, and music enthusiasts, all expecting a high level of skill. She knew this was an opportunity to show the world the depth of her ability, but it also meant facing intense scrutiny. She prepared tirelessly in the weeks leading up to the gala. Every day, she practiced for hours, perfecting her pieces and refining her technique. She memorized each composition meticulously, learning not just the notes, but the emotion and story behind every chord. Her fingers moved with precision, guided by years of dedication and practice. At night, she would replay her performances in her mind, imagining the audience and the feeling of the grand stage beneath her hands. Despite the preparation, she felt a sense of anxiety as the gala approached. The thought of performing in front of so many accomplished musicians was intimidating. She wondered if they would truly appreciate her music, or if her blindness would make them doubt her skill. But she reminded herself of the masterclass where she had been mocked, and the competition where she had proven her talent. Each challenge she had faced had made her stronger, and she knew this was just another step in her journey. The evening of the gala arrived, and the atmosphere was electric. The hall was filled with people, the buzz of conversation blending with the soft notes of pre-performance tuning. She could feel the excitement and expectation in the air. Backstage, she listened to the other performers, their music flowing through the hall. She allowed herself a moment of calm, focusing on the sound and the energy around her. Every vibration told her something about the space and the audience, helping her prepare mentally for her performance. When her turn came, she walked confidently to the piano. The applause was polite but expectant, and she felt a surge of determination. She placed her hands on the keys, closed her eyes, and began to play. The first notes were soft, drawing the audience in. Her fingers moved with precision, each chord carefully crafted to convey the emotion she wanted to express. The music flowed naturally, a combination of skill, feeling, and years of dedication. As she progressed, the piece grew more complex with faster notes and intricate patterns. She felt the music in her body, her fingers guided by memory and intuition. The audience was silent, completely absorbed in her performance. Every note told a story of struggle, perseverance, and triumph. She was not just playing. She was communicating, sharing a part of herself with everyone who listened. Midway through the piece, she reached the most challenging section. The notes came fast and required perfect coordination and timing. Her hands moved effortlessly, guided by the countless hours of practice and her deep understanding of the music. She could feel the energy of the audience, the collective anticipation building as she navigated the difficult passages. Her heart pounded, but her focus never wavered. She was in her element, fully immersed in the music. As she reached the final section, the intensity of the music increased. She poured all her emotion into the performance, letting every note reflect her journey. The hall seemed to hold its breath as she played the concluding chords. When the last note faded, there was a brief silence, a moment of stillness where the audience seemed suspended in awe. Then, the applause erupted, thunderous and overwhelming. People rose to their feet, clapping and cheering, moved by the power and beauty of her performance. The famous pianist who had once mocked her was in the audience. She felt his gaze, and though she could not see, she sensed his recognition. He approached her after the performance, offering words of praise and acknowledgement. It was a moment of validation, not just for her talent, but for her courage and determination. She had faced skepticism and doubt, and she had transformed it into something extraordinary. After the gala, the invitations to perform increased. She was asked to play at more concerts, festivals, and events, each one providing an opportunity to share her music with a wider audience. She remained focused on the joy of playing, on the connection she could create through her music. Her talent was no longer a secret. The world had begun to recognize her extraordinary ability. In her private moments, she reflected on her journey. From the small piano in her room to the grand stages of prestigious events, every step had been shaped by dedication, perseverance, and love for music. She understood that success was not just about skill, but about courage and resilience. Each performance was a testament to her journey, and each note carried a part of her story. She continued to practice diligently, always seeking to improve, to refine her technique, and to express her music more deeply. She explored new compositions, challenged herself with more complex pieces, and embraced opportunities to collaborate with other musicians. Her world was filled with sound, emotion, and connection, and she thrived in it. The challenges she had faced as a blind pianist had shaped her into a resilient and passionate musician, and she was ready for whatever the future held. Through every performance, she inspired others. People who had never considered the possibilities of overcoming obstacles were now moved by her talent and determination. Her story was a reminder that limitations exist only when we let them, and that courage and dedication can transform even the most difficult circumstances into extraordinary achievements. The music she played was more than notes. It was a message of hope, perseverance, and the power of the human spirit. As she lay in her room at night, replaying the performances of the day in her mind, she felt a profound sense of fulfillment. She had faced doubt, mockery, and fear, and had transformed them into music that touched the hearts of many. Each note was a reminder of her journey, each chord a symbol of her resilience. Though she could not see, she envisioned the possibilities ahead, the stages she would play on, and the audiences she would reach. Her music was her voice, and through it, she would continue to share her story with the world. After the gala, her life changed in ways she had never imagined. Invitations to perform poured in from different cities, and sometimes even from other countries. Music enthusiasts, critics, and organizers wanted to hear the blind girl whose talent had left everyone in awe. Though the attention was exciting, she remained grounded, remembering why she played music in the first place. It was never for fame or recognition. It was for the feeling, the connection, and the joy that music brought to her life and to those who listened. She continued to practice every day, exploring new pieces and refining her technique. Every practice session was a journey of discovery. She experimented with dynamics, tempo, and expression, learning how small changes could make a big difference in the emotions conveyed. Her fingers moved across the keys with precision and grace, guided by her memory, intuition, and the vibrations of the piano. Each note was a reflection of her journey, each chord a piece of her story. Though her schedule became busier, she never lost sight of the lessons she had learned along the way. She remembered the days when she had been mocked and underestimated. She remembered the long hours of practice in her small room, the nights she had spent memorizing every note, and the fear she had faced when performing on new stages. Those experiences had shaped her, teaching her resilience, patience, and the value of dedication. They reminded her that success was not just about talent, but about courage and perseverance. One afternoon, she received a letter from a music festival inviting her to perform as the featured pianist. The festival was known for hosting some of the best musicians in the world, and performing there would be a significant milestone. She felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. The audience would be larger, the expectations higher, and the spotlight brighter. But she knew that she had faced challenges before and had always emerged stronger. She accepted the invitation, ready to continue sharing her music with the world. In the weeks leading up to the festival, she prepared meticulously. She chose a repertoire that would highlight both her technical skill and her emotional expression. Each piece was practiced over and over until she could play it flawlessly from memory. She imagined herself on the grand stage, feeling the vibrations of the floor, the keys beneath her fingers, and the energy of the audience surrounding her. This visualization helped calm her nerves and allowed her to focus on the music itself. The day of the festival arrived. She entered the hall early, taking in the grandeur of the space. The stage was large, and the audience seats stretched far into the distance. She listened to the other performers, appreciating their skill while focusing on her own preparation. She felt a sense of calm wash over her, knowing that the music would guide her, as it always had. She trusted her training, her intuition, and her heart. When it was her turn to perform, she walked confidently to the piano. The applause was polite at first, but she could sense the curiosity and expectation in the air. She placed her hands on the keys and closed her eyes, letting the music flow naturally. The first notes were soft and delicate, drawing the audience in. Her fingers danced over the keys with precision and grace, each note conveying emotion and story. The audience was silent, completely absorbed in the performance. As she progressed, the music grew more complex and intense. She navigated the intricate passages effortlessly, her fingers moving as if guided by an unseen force. Every chord, every melody, every nuance was a reflection of her dedication and passion. The audience was captivated, sensing the depth of feeling behind each note. Even those who had doubts about her ability were now completely entranced, witnessing a musician whose talent transcended the limitations of sight. Midway through the performance, she reached the most challenging section of her repertoire. The tempo increased, the notes became faster, and the intricacy of the music demanded complete focus. She felt the energy of the hall, the anticipation of the audience, and the vibrations of the piano beneath her fingers. Her heart raced, but her focus was unwavering. She was in her element, fully immersed in the music, expressing every emotion she had experienced on her journey. As she approached the final section, she poured her soul into the performance. Every note carried her story, every chord reflected her struggles and triumphs. The audience was silent, held in awe by the beauty and power of her playing. She could feel the connection she had created, a bond that went beyond words. This was more than a performance. It was a statement, a testament to the human spirit and the power of dedication. The final chord resonated through the hall, leaving a moment of silence that felt almost sacred. Then, the applause erupted, thunderous and overwhelming. People rose to their feet, clapping and cheering, moved by the depth and emotion of her performance. Tears glistened in the eyes of some audience members, while others whispered in admiration. She felt a wave of joy and relief, knowing that she had shared her music fully and fearlessly. After the performance, the festival organizers and fellow musicians approached her, offering words of praise and congratulations. She was recognized not just for her technical skill, but for the emotional depth and authenticity she brought to her music. Even those who had doubted her ability in the past now expressed admiration and respect. She had faced skepticism, fear, and doubt, and had transformed them into something extraordinary. In the following weeks, she received more invitations to perform at events, concerts, and festivals. She continued to practice diligently, exploring new pieces and refining her technique. She collaborated with other musicians, learning from them and sharing her own insights. Her world became filled with music, opportunities, and the joy of connecting with audiences who were moved by her talent. Through it all, she never forgot the lessons she had learned. She remembered the times when she had been mocked, underestimated, or doubted. She remembered the long hours of practice, the moments of fear, and the triumphs that followed. These experiences had shaped her into the musician she had become, teaching her resilience, patience, and the value of hard work. Her music was a reflection of her journey, a story told through sound, emotion, and dedication. At night, she would lie in her room, replaying her performances in her mind. She could feel the vibrations of each note, the rhythm of each piece, and the emotions they conveyed. She imagined herself on stages she had never seen, reaching audiences far beyond her hometown. Though she could not see, she envisioned the energy, the connection, and the joy that music brought. These thoughts filled her with hope and excitement for the future. She knew that challenges would continue to come, that critics and new audiences would test her skill and confidence. But she also knew that she had already faced doubt, fear, and ridicule, and had transformed them into achievements. Every obstacle was an opportunity to grow, every moment of fear a chance to become stronger. Her story was still unfolding, and she was ready to continue writing it, one note at a time. Music was her voice, her passion, and her way to reach the world in ways words could never express. Her journey had shown that limitations exist only when we allow them. She had proven that talent, courage, and perseverance could overcome any obstacle. Her blindness had not stopped her. Instead, it had shaped the way she experienced and expressed music, giving her a unique voice that touched the hearts of all who listened. And as she continued to play, to explore, and to share her gift, she knew that her story was far from over. The world would continue to listen, inspired by the sound of a blind girl whose music had the power to dazzle and move everyone who heard it.